Hello, and welcome to my capstone presentation. This is what I'm going to be choosing for my capstone project this year. I'm going to be talking about increasing long-term care with nurses and nurse aide retention. That's a huge issue right now, and I want to address that. So, kind of the reasoning behind how I chose this project is a lot of my decisions are made upon family or friends, how it's going to impact them, what I can do to help them. And so, long story short, when I was thinking about long-term care after taking a long-term care course, I was thinking how this was going to impact my parents as they continue to age. And I want to make sure that they have quality nurses taking care of them. I want to make sure they're receiving the care that they desire, and that comes from having nurses who are finding fulfillment in their jobs, sticking around long enough to create those relationships with my parents, and those nurses having engagement. And this comes from being able to incentivize the nurses and being able to staff them appropriately. So that's kind of some of the background on this project of what really impacted me choosing this. More background on the project. I selected this topic after a previous course that I had. That course really made me think about staffing, retention, after going in a long-term center and just seeing the ratio being really low and reading about the ratios being really low. I want to make sure that we can increase those so that we can have quality care and satisfaction ratings that are out the roof. So I want to identify the problems within a facility, assess the cause, and then be able to implement a corrective plan in order to increase staffing and retention for long-term care facilities. This will impact the staff as well as the residents and increase those satisfaction ratings. The setting's going to be in a long-term care facility, and my contact is going to be my mentor, Tracy. So the needs assessment. What is the perceived need for this project? Well, I want to address the current gaps between staffing and retention and be able to teach how we can fix these gaps. I want to take data from previous projects and implement it into my project in order to show where the necessity and the need is. The needs assessment will describe the issue at hand, and it's going to break down those issues so that we can see the reasoning for turnover. And it will also address areas that need improvement, such as recruiting, compensation, education, training, and these will all be evaluated in order to identify the appropriate solutions for this issue. I want to make sure that my project is focused on that end goal, which is staffing and retention, and how we are going to get there. So the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders in the project? These are the people that are going to help impact the project. And the stakeholders for my project will be the nursing staff, because this is going to directly impact them, patients and residents, because they have a say in this, the chief operating officer, the executive team, as well as the administrator, me, putting the project together. There's going to be 3 different types. There's a supportive stakeholder, a swayed stakeholder, and a negative stakeholder. So the supportive stakeholder is going to be those nurses, my nursing staff that I'm working with. They want to see quality, they want to see fulfillment and engagement in their jobs, so they are supporting me in this project. The swayed are going to be those executives, the COO. Those are going to be the people that maybe don't see the day-to-day life of the ratios and what's really the issue is with retention. They're seeing the books and they're seeing that nurses are being turned around, but they're not seeing necessarily the impact on the resident. So they could be swayed either way. The negative are going to be those residents, because a lot of residents don't like change. They don't want to see change. Some of them are the ones feeding out the nurses because they're saying they don't like them, or that's where some of the turnover is coming from. So those are going to be the ones that I really need to target and be able to show them the positivity and having retention in their level of care. So how do you address stakeholders? Those who want to support the project, let me see. Stakeholders can be addressed in various ways. It's communication methods. It's being able to have interpersonal skills. It's being able to see what their expectations are for this project or where they're coming from. So I'm going to address all of my stakeholders with grace, confidence, with data backing, why I'm doing this and the reasoning for it. And also those doubting the project, I'm going to come in with financial and quality outcomes in order for them to see what it's going to look like long term. And those who already support my project, I'm just going to give them extra reasoning behind how this project is going to create success for them and satisfaction in their work environment. And those who are negative about it, I'm just going to approach them with data, grace, and understanding and try to expand their view on the current situation and why we're trying to close this gap. So communication and understanding, what are the prerequisites needed in order to communicate most effectively with stakeholders? And that's in order to properly communicate with stakeholders, you need grace, you need perseverance, you need confidence, you need peace. And you need to be steadfast with the servant's heart. This is coming out of a place of serving. And if I can be steadfast and persevere and show them really the quality outcomes and how we're taking better care of our patients, residents, nurses, our community is going to be better. So as stated in Corinthians 15:58, it says, "Therefore, my beloved brothers, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor is not in vain." So I'm just going to be steadfast. I'm going to encourage them and persevere and give them data. And I want to know their expectations up front so that I can communicate with them better. I also need to have open communication, whether that's visual for some, whether that's sitting down with having quality time with others. That's going to help my outcome and giving examples. I need to speak clearly, keep the number of topics at a minimum, and determine what they want to know and what areas they might be able to help me in. An example of this would be with the COOs and the executives, knowing the budget, knowing where they stand with the budget, outcomes for this project, what is it going to look in 12 months, 3 years, 5 years for them. Goals. What are my goals for this project? What do I want to accomplish? So long term, I want to accomplish staffing and retention. I want there to be consistency within long-term care facilities where there's not constant turnover. So that is a goal. I want to reduce turnover, increase nurse and patient satisfaction, and I want to implement cost-saving measures because the more we retain, the less we're pulling out of our budget to continue to rehire and fire. And that's really expensive. So this project is going to help nurses find fulfillment in their job, increase incentive programs, because that might be one of the reasons why we're not retaining is because we don't have a good incentive program. And then how are we going to recruit new nurses? By keeping a good incentive program, by keeping the retained skilled nurses that we need in order to have quality. And I'm prepared to build this plan. So my goal is to build a 12-month, a 3-year, and a 5-year plan to show how this retention is going to help the facility in the long run. Requirements and tools. So what resources do you expect to need to accomplish your goals? There's a ton of different resources. So really I need funding, I need additional headcount. That's going to do with my staffing. I need meeting time with these executives in order for this plan to go through. I need support and sponsorship from them, the nurses, the residents, and I need data as well. What tools will I use to measure what the needs are? So the tools I'm going to use for this would either be an Excel spreadsheet, and in this I'm going to track the needs of the project, or I can use a program called Tableau, which also tracks these type of things. This will help track budget, support, education, nurse hiring, firing, and retention. And this will allow me to figure out how my nurses are doing, how they are doing it, and in order to figure out where my staffing and retention issues are lying. So other tools for implementing this program will include education for staff, surveys, and then data collection. How will you measure before you start your, what's your baseline? The way I'll create my baseline is through a process called PMB, which is Performance Measurement Baseline. It's a work package. You look at it as a whole work package. So it'll be a collection, and then it will be defined as deliverables, estimated duration and effort, resources needed to produce these deliverables, and that has to do with time period, external and internal dependencies, and how that's going to help start the project. So here's my literature review. This is kind of where I'm going to start for some of my data and information that I can use as my academic sources. A lot of these are from previous courses I took, textbooks in my long-term care. Others are going to be journals and academic journals that have already done studies on this and have already shown the impact that staffing and retention could have on long-term care. So this is just a start for me. And here's the references, some of the references I used in my presentation. You'll see each one of the pictures, the figures have their citation next to them. Well, thank you so much, and I'm excited to get started on this project.